the discovery that changed everything. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, her eyes scanning the endless darkness beyond the viewport. The deep space exploration vessel had been traveling for 6 months, charting unexplored regions at the edge of known space. Her crew of 47 specialists represented humanity's best and brightest, chosen for this mission to map the territories beyond the galactic rim. Elena had led dozens of expeditions in her 15 years of service, but something about this journey felt different. The space here seemed heavier somehow, as if the darkness itself was watching them. The science officer, Lieutenant James Park, broke the silence with an urgent call. His voice carried an edge of excitement mixed with confusion that made Elena's pulse quicken. She moved swiftly to his station, her boots making soft thuds against the metal floor. The holographic display before him showed readings that made no sense according to any known physics. A signal pulsed through space, its origin point located in a region the galactic maps designated as the Abyss Sector, a place where no stars shined and no ship had ever returned from. James explained what his instruments were detecting, his hands moving rapidly across the control interface. The signal operated on quantum frequencies that shouldn't exist naturally. It carried information encoded in patterns that resembled neural activity, specifically human neural activity, but the dating analysis revealed something impossible. The signal had been traveling through space for 73,000 years, originating long before humans had even developed written language on Earth. Yet the encoding matched human brainwave patterns with absolute precision, not similar or approximately close, but exactly identical down to the molecular level. Elena felt a chill run down her spine despite the regulated temperature of the bridge. She ordered a full analysis of the signal, wanting every possible explanation explored before reporting this to command. Over the next 48 hours, her team worked without rest, running simulation after simulation. Every test confirmed the same impossible truth. The signal was ancient beyond measure, yet undeniably human in origin. It contained coordinates, mathematical sequences, and something that resembled a distress call, though the language was unlike anything in human records. The communication array lit up with an incoming priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen, looking older than Elena remembered. Behind him, she could see military officials and scientists crowded into the command center. The Admiral's expression was grave as he informed her that the Prometheus was not alone in its discovery. 11 other human vessels scattered across different sectors had detected similar signals, all originating from points surrounding the Abyss Sector, all impossibly ancient, all broadcasting in human patterns. What made the situation more alarming was the response from the Galactic Assembly. The council that governed relations between the 200 spacefaring species had called an emergency session. Humanity was being summoned to explain these findings, and the tone of the summons carried accusation rather than curiosity. Several elder species were demanding answers, suggesting that humanity had hidden its true nature and history from the galactic community. The political situation was deteriorating rapidly, and Earth needed the Prometheus to represent humanity's interest at the Assembly. Elena set course for the Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the Assembly's headquarters. The journey took 3 weeks, during which her team continued analyzing the signal. They discovered layers of information embedded within the transmission, each layer more complex than the last. There were star charts showing galaxy configurations from tens of thousands of years ago, technical specifications for weapons and ships that seemed impossibly advanced, and most disturbing of all, battle reports describing a war that had consumed entire star systems. The Nexus Prime appeared before them like a miniature moon, its surface covered with docking ports and communication arrays. Ships from countless worlds crowded the space around it, representing civilizations that spanned the full spectrum of galactic diversity. Elena had visited the station twice before, but never under such tense circumstances. As the Prometheus docked, she could feel the weight of what was about to happen. Humanity's place in the galactic community, perhaps its very survival, depended on what happened in the next few hours. The assembly chamber was a massive spherical room where representatives from all member species gathered. Elena stood in the center speaking platform, feeling the eyes of 200 civilizations upon her. The elder species occupied the highest positions in the chamber, beings who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless worlds. Among them was Architect Thuvan, a consciousness that existed as patterns of light within a crystalline matrix. Thuvan had existed for 28,000 years and served as the Assembly's chief historian. Thuvan's voice resonated through the chamber, translated into frequencies that all species could understand. The ancient being presented evidence that had been gathered over the past month. Archaeological teams had investigated the coordinate points indicated by the signals and found 12 worlds scarred by ancient warfare. The destruction was absolute. Planets cracked open like eggs, moons shattered into asteroid fields, and space itself showed signs of weapons that bent reality. The battles had occurred approximately 73,000 years ago, during a period the elder species called the Silent Era, a time before any current civilization had achieved space travel. The weapon signatures at these sites matched human technology with frightening precision. The atomic structures of the munitions, the design philosophy of the destroyed ships, even the tactical approaches used in battle, all corresponded to human military doctrine. Carbon dating and quantum analysis confirmed that these battles predated human civilization by tens of thousands of years. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Whoever fought these wars thought like humans, built like humans, and fought like humans. A representative from the Krill Dominion rose to speak, its chitinous body gleaming under the chamber lights. The insectoid being accused humanity of deception, suggesting that humans were not the young species they claimed to be, but rather ancient warriors who had returned to the stars. Other voices joined in, fear and anger mixing together as species demanded explanations. The chamber erupted into chaos with accusations flying from all directions. Some called for humanity to be placed under military observation. Others suggested complete quarantine until the mystery was solved. Elena raised her voice above the noise, defending her species with every argument she could muster. She presented Earth's complete historical records, geological evidence of human evolution, genetic studies showing humanity's development over millions of years. Everything pointed to humanity being exactly what it appeared to be, a young species that had only recently achieved faster than light travel. She had no explanation for the signals or the ancient battles, but she swore on behalf of all humanity that they had no memory of these events, no hidden history, no secret past. Architect Thuvan called for silence, and the chamber quieted immediately. The ancient consciousness spoke with a tone that carried both sadness and concern. Thuvan explained that humanity possessed unusual characteristics that had puzzled xenobiologists since first contact. Human DNA contained sequences that served no apparent evolutionary purpose, genetic markers that seemed deliberately placed rather than naturally developed. Humans healed from injuries faster than most species, adapted to new environments with remarkable speed, and showed capacity for both extreme violence and profound compassion in ways that defied normal evolutionary patterns. The architect presented a hypothesis that sent shockwaves through the assembly. Perhaps humanity was not naturally evolved but rather designed, created by whoever fought the ancient wars. Perhaps humans were the descendants of those ancient warriors, their memories wiped, their history erased, left to develop on Earth as if starting fresh. Or perhaps something even stranger was true, something that the available evidence couldn't yet explain. Either way, the mystery had to be solved, and there was only one way to find answers. The assembly reached its decision after hours of deliberation. Humanity would lead an expedition into the Abyss sector, following the signal to its source. They would investigate the Forbidden Zone where no ship had returned for 1,000,000 years. Representatives from 12 major species would accompany the mission, observing and recording everything. If humanity refused or if they attempted to hide evidence, Earth and all human colonies would be placed under total quarantine, cut off from the galactic community permanently. Elena accepted the mission because there was no alternative. She understood the danger, knew that the Abyss had claimed every ship that entered it throughout recorded history. But she also understood that humanity's future depended on discovering the truth. The assembly gave her command of a fleet consisting of the Prometheus and 11 vessels from other species, each carrying the best scientists and warriors their civilizations could provide. They had 2 months to prepare before departure. The preparation time passed in a blur of activity. The Prometheus underwent extensive upgrades, receiving shields and weapons that incorporated technology from multiple species. Elena's crew was expanded with specialists from Earth and the colonies, experts in ancient languages, quantum mechanics, xenoarchaeology, and military tactics. she met with the commanders of the other ships, building relationships with beings whose species had been exploring space, while humans were still learning to make fire. Among the expedition members was Dr. Raymond Torres, a human archaeologist who had spent 20 years studying the elder species' histories. Raymond believed that the answer to humanity's mystery lay not in the future but in understanding patterns from the galactic past. He had discovered references in ancient texts to a war that had nearly destroyed the galaxy, a conflict so terrible that all records of it had been systematically erased. The few fragments that remained spoke of warriors who appeared from nowhere, fought with unprecedented ferocity, and then vanished completely. As the departure date approached, Elena received a private message from Admiral Chen. The old man's face showed the strain of recent events, the political pressure from Earth's government, and the fear of what the expedition might discover. He told her that regardless of what she found in the abyss, she must transmit the truth back to Earth. Humanity deserved to know its real history, whatever that history might be. He also warned her that not all species in the expedition could be trusted, that some might have their own agendas for entering the abyss. The day of departure arrived with little ceremony. The 12 ships formed a convoy and activated their faster-than-light drives in unison, jumping toward the edge of known space. The journey to the abyss boundary took 18 days, during which Elena held daily meetings with the other commanders. Tensions ran high as they approached the forbidden zone. Some species representatives viewed humans with open suspicion, while others showed a cautious sympathy. All of them understood they were venturing into territory that had claimed countless lives throughout history. The abyss appeared on their sensors as a void in space, a region where stars simply stopped existing. It stretched for hundreds of light years in all directions, a darkness so absolute that it seemed to swallow light itself. As the fleet approached the boundary, strange things began to happen. Navigation systems flickered and showed impossible readings. Time dilation effects occurred without any apparent gravitational source. Crew members across all ships reported vivid dreams of battles in places they had never seen. Elena stood on the bridge as the Prometheus crossed into the abyss, feeling the ship shudder as if passing through some invisible barrier. The viewport showed nothing but absolute darkness ahead. No stars, no nebulae, nothing but the void. The signal they had been following grew stronger, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed almost like a heartbeat. It was calling to them, drawing them deeper into the darkness, towards secrets that had been hidden for 73,000 years. The quantum sensors detected something massive ahead, structures floating in the void that registered as artificial but impossibly ancient. Elena ordered the fleet to proceed with caution, every weapon system armed and ready. Whatever they were about to discover would change everything, for humanity and for the entire galaxy. The signal pulsed again, stronger now, and Elena felt something stir in her mind, a memory that wasn't hers, a recognition of something she had never seen but somehow knew. The abyss was not empty after all, and what dwelled within it had been waiting for humanity to return. Awakening of the ancients, the fleet moved deeper into the abyss, traveling through darkness that seemed to have substance and weight. Elena watched the sensor readings with growing unease as the ships penetrated further into the void. The structures they had detected earlier began to resolve into clearer images on the holographic displays. What emerged from the data made her breath catch in her throat. Floating in the emptiness were constructs of such massive scale that they dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Ships, stations, and platforms stretched for hundreds of kilometers, their surfaces covered with symbols and markings that the translation computers struggled to interpret. Dr. Torres worked frantically at his station, cross-referencing the symbols with every known ancient language in the galactic database. His hands shook as he made the connections, finding patterns that shouldn't exist. The markings were proto-human, derivatives of languages that would eventually evolve into Sanskrit, Sumerian, and Egyptian hieroglyphs on Earth. But these versions predated those languages by thousands of years, existing in a form that suggested they were the original source rather than primitive ancestors. The implications were staggering. Whoever built these structures had direct connections to human linguistic development. The Prometheus led the fleet toward the largest structure, a cylindrical station that rotated slowly in the void. As they approached, lights began activating across its surface in sequential patterns as if the station was waking from a long sleep. The other ships in the convoy reported similar activations on nearby structures, Something about their presence, or perhaps the signal they had been following, was triggering systems that had lain dormant for millennia. Elena ordered all ships to maintain defensive positions while scanning for threats, but the station showed no hostile intent, only the steady illumination of systems coming online. A message appeared simultaneously on every ship's communication array, written in mathematical sequences that any spacefaring species could understand. The message contained docking coordinates and an invitation to board. Architect Thuvan's voice came through the fleet channel, the ancient consciousness expressing wonder at what they were witnessing. In 28,000 years of existence, Thuvan had never encountered anything like this. The technology evident in these structures exceeded anything the elder species had achieved, operating on principles that seemed to bend the fundamental laws of physics. Elena made the decision to accept the invitation, knowing that they had come too far to turn back now. She selected a boarding party consisting of herself, Dr. Torres, Lieutenant Park, and 3 security officers. Representatives from the other ships would join them, including Thuvan, who transferred its consciousness into a mobile containment unit. The 12-member team took a shuttle across the void to the station's docking bay, watching as massive doors opened to receive them, mechanisms moving smoothly despite their incredible age. The interior of the station took their breath away. Corridors stretched in perfect geometric patterns, walls made of materials that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. Lighting emerged from the walls themselves, illuminating their path as they walked. The atmosphere was breathable for most of the team members, perfectly balanced in composition, as if the station had analyzed their biological requirements and adjusted accordingly. Every surface was pristine, showing no signs of age or decay despite sitting in the void for tens of thousands of years. They followed the corridor system deeper into the station, guided by lights that activated ahead of them and dimmed behind them. The architecture felt familiar to Elena in ways she couldn't explain. Proportions and angles that matched human sensibilities despite predating human civilization. They entered a vast chamber where the walls were covered with holographic displays, each one showing star charts, technical schematics, and images of beings that looked unmistakably human, not similar to humans, not humanoid, but humans exactly as they appeared in modern times. Dr. Torres moved from display to display, his voice filled with awe as he translated the information. The displays showed a history that challenged everything the galaxy believed about its past. 73,000 years ago, humanity had not been confined to Earth. Humans had been a spacefaring civilization that spanned hundreds of star systems, possessing technology that made current galactic civilizations look primitive by comparison. They had been guardians, protectors who maintained peace across multiple galactic sectors, preventing conflicts and defending younger species from threats that emerged from the dark spaces between stars. But something had gone terribly wrong. The displays showed the emergence of an entity from beyond the galactic rim, something that existed partially outside normal space and time. The entity consumed entire star systems, converting matter and energy into extensions of itself, growing larger and more powerful with each world it devoured. The ancient humans had fought this threat with everything they possessed, building weapons that could tear holes in reality, ships that moved through dimensions, and strategic minds that planned battles across multiple timelines simultaneously. The war had lasted for centuries, spanning the galaxy and leaving scars that were still visible in the present day. The ancient humans had ultimately won, but at a cost that nearly destroyed them. Their civilization was shattered, their numbers reduced to a fraction of what they had been, and their technology pushed beyond safe limits. In the final battle, they had imprisoned the entity in a pocket dimension, sealing it away where it could never threaten the galaxy again. But the effort required to maintain that seal was enormous, demanding. The displays showed the decision that followed. The remaining ancient humans had determined that their civilization was too damaged to continue. They had become too dependent on their advanced technology, too removed from the fundamental aspects of existence that gave life meaning. They made a choice that seemed impossible to believe. They would start over, returning to their evolutionary origins, living simple lives and redeveloping naturally. They scattered seed populations across potential worlds, with the largest group placed on a planet they called the Cradle, a world known in the present as Earth. Before they regressed, they built these stations as archives and guard posts, The structures would remain dormant until humanity naturally redeveloped space travel and ventured far enough to trigger the ancient signals. The stations contained all the knowledge and technology of the ancient civilization, preserved for the day when humanity would need it again. Because the ancient humans knew something crucial, the seal holding the entity was not permanent. It would weaken over time, and eventually the threat would return. New humans, evolved naturally and uncorrupted by the mistakes of the past, would need to face that threat when it emerged. A central pedestal in the chamber began to glow, and a form materialized above it. The hologram showed a woman who could have walked the streets of any human city in the present day. She wore the uniform of some ancient military organization, her eyes carrying the weight of battles fought across impossible distances. Her voice filled the chamber, speaking in a language that the translation systems rendered into understandable speech for all present. She identified herself as Commander Sarah Mitchell, last leader of the human Guardian fleet. Recording this message 73,000 years ago, Sarah's message was directed specifically at the humans who would eventually find this place. She explained that the choice to regress had not been made lightly. The ancient humans had seen what their civilization had become, brilliant but hollow, powerful but disconnected from the fundamental experiences that made existence worthwhile. They had hoped that by starting over, by rediscovering fire and agriculture and art and love through natural progression, humanity would develop in a more balanced way. She apologized for the burden this placed on future generations, but expressed confidence that new humans would be stronger for having climbed from the beginning. The hologram's expression changed, becoming more urgent. Sarah warned that the seal holding the entity was designed to last approximately 75,000 years before degrading. The timeline meant that present-day humanity had arrived with only a narrow margin before the threat would return. The stations contained everything needed to prepare for that eventuality. Weapons and ships and tactical knowledge preserved in perfect condition. But technology alone would not be enough. The ancient humans had learned that lesson the hard way. Victory would require the natural humanity that new humans possessed, the creativity and adaptability and unexpected thinking that came from developing without predetermined paths. As Sarah's message concluded, the chamber began to transform. Panels opened in the walls, revealing rooms filled with equipment and data cores. Systems throughout the station activated fully, showing operational status across hundreds of interconnected facilities scattered through the abyss. The archive was online and accessible, ready to share 73,000 years of accumulated knowledge. But something else was activating too, something that made the entire station vibrate with a deep resonance that felt wrong on an instinctive level. Alarms blared across all ships in the fleet simultaneously. Sensors detected a massive distortion forming in space near the edge of the abyss. The seal that Sarah had mentioned, the prison holding the ancient entity, was failing ahead of schedule. Perhaps the activation of the stations had weakened it, or perhaps the entity had been working on escape for millennia, and this moment was coincidental. Either way, the threat was emerging, pushing through dimensional barriers into normal space. And it was even larger than the historical records had suggested. Elena ordered the boarding party back to their ships while simultaneously accessing the station's tactical databases. Information flooded into the Prometheus's computers, battle plans and weapon specifications and strategic doctrines developed over centuries of warfare. The other ships in the fleet were receiving similar data, their computers struggling to process the volume of information. Architect Thuvan's voice carried a note of fear, as the ancient consciousness recognized what was emerging. This was the nightmare that had been erased from galactic history, the terror that predated all current civilizations. The entity manifested as a tear in reality itself, darkness that was somehow darker than the void around it, hungering and aware. Ships near the distortion reported systems failing, as the entity's presence disrupted the fundamental forces that made technology function. It was growing rapidly, expanding as it consumed the matter and energy of the abyss itself. Elena realized with horror that if the entity escaped into normal space, it would begin consuming inhabited systems, and modern galactic civilizations had no weapons capable of stopping it. But the ancient stations did have such weapons. Elena accessed the command protocols that Sarah's message had unlocked, finding herself suddenly connected to defense systems that spanned the entire abyss sector. The stations were not just archives but weapons platforms of incomprehensible power, designed specifically to fight threats like the entity. She felt the weight of command settle over her, recognizing that she was about to use technology that could destroy planets or fold space itself. The responsibility was crushing, but there was no one else to bear it. The fleet engaged the entity using a combination of modern weapons and ancient systems. Beams of energy that operated on frequencies outside normal space struck at the Terran reality, trying to force it closed. The entity fought back with appendages that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, reaching for the ships with hunger that transcended physical need. Several vessels took damage as reality warped around them, hulls cracking under stresses that shouldn't exist. Elena coordinated the defense, using tactical knowledge that flowed into her mind from the station's computers, ancient strategies adapted for present circumstances. Dr. Torres made a discovery that changed everything. The entity was not just a mindless force of consumption, but an intelligence ancient and patient that had been testing the seal for millennia. It had learned from its previous defeat, developing strategies to counter the weapons that had imprisoned it. The ancient tactics alone would not be enough. They needed something new, something unexpected, exactly what Sarah had hoped modern humanity would provide. Elena saw the solution with sudden clarity, understanding what needed to be done. She contacted all ships in the fleet, human and alien alike, explaining her plan. Instead of fighting the entity with pure force, they would use the ancient weapons to create a new seal, but one designed with modern understanding of quantum mechanics and dimensional physics. The combined knowledge of 12 species working together could create something the entity had never encountered before. It was a desperate gamble, but the alternative was allowing the entity to escape and begin consuming the galaxy. The fleet worked in perfect coordination, each ship contributing its unique technological capabilities. The ancient stations provided raw power while modern sensors guided precision. The entity fought desperately as it realized what was happening, throwing itself against the forming seal with terrifying fury. For moments that stretched like hours, the outcome hung in balance. Then the seal locked into place, reinforced by principles the ancient humans had never known. Stronger than the original by orders of magnitude, the entity was contained again, imprisoned behind barriers that would hold for millions of years rather than thousands. The abyss settled back into quietness, the stations dimming to standby mode but remaining accessible. Elena sat in her command chair, exhausted but triumphant, knowing that humanity and the galaxy had just survived the closest call in recorded history. The expedition had discovered humanity's true origins and fulfilled the purpose the ancient humans had intended. The fleet returned to known space as heroes, carrying evidence that changed galactic history. Humanity was recognized not as suspicious newcomers but as the inheritors of the galaxy's oldest guardian civilization. The Galactic Assembly voted to grant humans a permanent seat among the elder species, acknowledging both their ancient heritage and their modern achievements. The stations in the abyss became a shared resource, their knowledge accessible to all species willing to use it responsibly. Elena retired from active service shortly after, having achieved more than she ever imagined possible. But she knew her story was just the beginning. Humanity had rediscovered its past and proven itself in the present, but the future held new challenges and opportunities. The ancient humans had been right to start over, right to believe that natural development would create something stronger than engineered perfection. Modern humans, with their hard-won wisdom and their allies across 100 worlds, were ready to be guardians once again, protecting the galaxy not with the arrogance of the past, but with the humility of those who had climbed from the beginning and remembered every step of the journey.